Back again. Our final speaker in the Omidyar Network series is a serial entrepreneur, software developer, a TED Senior Fellow, and a mentor. Trained in the arts, John Gosier very well could have been a writer or an artist. Instead, today his analysis of patterns, composition, and language guide his work as Ushahidi's Director of Product for Swift River, a platform for making sense of streams of real-time data. In addition to his work at Ushahidi, John mentors and invests in software developers in Africa through App Africa, a company he founded in 2008. In a joint project with OpenMind, App Africa developed Question Box, a service that allows people in rural Uganda with no access to internet to ask questions and get timely, vetted answers from human operators. John's vision in part spans the online and offline worlds. He's an artist who paints a vision inspired by possibility, but always grounded in the human condition. Please join me in welcoming John Gosier.
So I can't tell you how relieved I was to see so many hands go up when Lucas brought up crowdsourcing, because giving a talk about crowdsourcing 102, sort of not a winning strategy if you have to start from the beginning. So I work with a company called Ushahidi. We make open source software for collecting information, sort of drawing situational awareness from the public during disaster scenarios, also known as crowdsourcing. And we allow people to visualize that data geospatially and use it to do other things with. It could be responding to disaster, it could be helping people who are in need, and so on. But one of the problems that came out of our platform in solving this original problem is what happens when you get too much information back from the public. How do you make sense of all of that information? And that's sort of the mandate of the Swift River project. So I really love this quote by Clay Shirky, that data problems, particularly when it comes to crowdsourcing, tend to be problems of filtering as opposed to analysis and so on. Analysis comes later, but filtering becomes, when you're dealing with real-time data sets, becomes the initial problem. So the Swift River platform has a couple of goals. First, to consider, our goal is to always consider the context of the user. We never want to position tools that, much like Ushahidi, that like Ushahidi does, I should say, that sort of work against your personal needs of collecting information. So we always have to consider your context, how you're considering data, your data gathering needs in the time that you're collecting them. We also wanted to think about, so how can you pre-vet information? Part of that is storing data and collecting massive amounts of information about relationships, about the way people interact with each other in platforms like Ushahidi, Facebook, Twitter, so on, looking at those patterns, but also storing them so you can use historical context to sort of match against future scenarios and so on. So caching a lot of content, big data sets that we can then offer back to the public as an API. Now, this is very much opt-in, as opposed to some other strategies of other companies where you have to opt out of everything. This is very much opt-in. People are using Ushahidi to do something. They tell us that they want to contribute their data to this data set. Secondly, we also want algorithms to augment human experience. So it shouldn't, our goal is not to define how you're using these tools, how you're collecting information, but to augment the process through the various algorithms that we offer. We work across media channels, accessible offline, and again, we're indexing massive amounts of the social web and the mobile web because we deal a lot in countries where the web itself isn't always a given, but the mobile web often is. So this is, first and foremost, a data problem, a big data problem of how to make sense and curate all of this real-time information. One of the chief things that we learned in trying to solve this is that data is agnostic. So a lot of people ask questions about the Swift River project. How are we sort of positioning ourselves in the market? One of the reasons why we do so many other things outside of crisis response is because it teaches us about data that we can then use that knowledge to apply to the crowdsourcing scenario and crisis mapping. So our strategy, we have a very sort of like central focus. Much like Ushahidi, we've got a staff. Like many open source, successful open source projects, there's a core team building the platform and then offering it out to people who then build on top. We like to think of Swift as infrastructure for Ushahidi, also for the general public to use to solve their data problems. So we work with a lot of journalists, private sector partners, and just get feedback from the people who are using our tools and how they would like to use our tools. So the project's been around for a long time. It's evolved quite a bit. I think 2008, there was a great group of individuals who were sort of thinking about these problems. 2009, we spent more time actually sort of applying this knowledge and sort of building out this platform to what it is today. And you can sort of see some of the things that we've done over the past year. The project's actually come alive. It's really exciting to be involved with it. Lastly, I'm just going to sort of give you a quick run-through of how all this works, and more specifically, because it's an open source project, how we think about helping the public sort of use crowdsourced information more efficiently and effectively. So there's 5 things to consider when you're looking at the Swift platform. One is that it is a platform, and these 5 things can work together, or you can sort of piecemeal them out and do different things with them. So one is location information. So as Ushahidi, we have massive amounts of location data that we've collected over the years. And this is very nuanced data from many parts of the world where it's not often accessible. We wanted to make that available to the public so people could then use that as part of their applications, their new applications, their new platforms, or to augment the experience of using Ushahidi. You can also use it as a way to triage information against a place as opposed to just sort of pulling that information in and treating it in without that additional context. The second API is tagging. So how can we add taxonomy? How can we sort of categorize information on the fly? Duplication filtering, getting rid of all the retweets, all the spam, all the Britney Spears references. The fourth thing is influence detection. One of the things that happens when you're dealing with real-time content, particularly with Twitter, is in a crisis scenario, is people often will talk about a situation or spread information that they may not have the facts straight about. And if you're an organization who who's got it in their interest to prevent that type of thing from happening, you want to know how influential that person is, how influential that information is as it spreads across the web and misinforms magnitudes more people. And then the final thing is reputation, which is what I mentioned, cataloging massive amounts of the social and mobile web and storing that context and then offering it back as a resource. So here, this is from a video I made a couple of months ago that sort of tracks a fake data item through the ecosystem of Swift products so you can see how things are structured, abstracted, and put back together. This is sort of the way the platform looks now. But more importantly than this particular platform, I think that this fundamentally sort of looks at the way that data, real-time data, is being consumed online, and the idea of adding context to help humans inform other decisions is the chief goal, and hopefully these open source tools are useful to you all. Thank you.